Okay, so we are ready to begin the texture project, the ink work. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page. This is obviously just an example, a finished product of where we're kind of heading. You will have chosen a photo reference. It should be a reference photo, not like a cartoon or something. It should be an actual photo. You've gridded it. You've drawn the outlines on a grid, and only outlines, not any detail. And then what we did was that transfer process where you just kind of shade the back, and you're using that graphite as like a carbon copy, and you put it on the next piece of paper and you trace it, you press rather firmly, and you get this light loose image of pencil lines. Now you can, this piece you don't need anymore, okay, unless you want to continue to use it again and again. But right now you don't need it anymore. You do need this piece, however. So you have your photo, and you are going to now ditch the pencil. Unless you look at it, by the way, and say to yourself, you know, I really should have added in more lines. I need more information to go on. You can go ahead and do that and add in more details. So, I mean, obviously it doesn't have the grid work, but if you needed to, you could throw in more little outlines if you think it would be helpful. Okay, you can do that. Next, grab your pen. Again, we are using a Precise V5 rolling ball by Pilot. Grab your pen, and you're gonna start doing the texture work. In order to do this, let's just remind ourselves how this works. We made this value scale in class, and the value scale that we made only has 5 values, being that one would be completely white and blank, and on through to super, super dark, a number 5, or maybe even a 6 if you were just to seriously just ink it out and completely cover it. So you could even get pitch black. But we don't have as many values as maybe when we use tonal drawing, and the tonal drawing is where things are smooth and you can get a lot more, easily get more values in like a tonal drawing versus say a texture drawing. We're doing texture. So what you need to remember is the scale kind of in your head. Okay, so we'll put that overhead. That is kind of sneaky back in the back thinking. You look at your picture and you start assessing the various shapes that are connected together. So I have this eye shape, and within the eye, I see that I have, I'm just gonna outline it here, but I have that half moon shape, or like a yam, and here I have another kind of crescent moon shape. I'm just going with the sort of the white, and I have another kind of shape in here. I don't know, what does it look like? Actually, can you, I don't know if you can see this, it almost looks like a goose head. So here I have the neck of the goose right here, and then I have the head of the goose and a little bit of like the beak right here. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks a little bit like that to me. There's just shapes, and each shape, just like puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, a shape is connected to another shape. You put those different shapes together and you're getting a whole piece. Each shape is assigned a different value. We go back to that scale. So when I look at this, you know, yam shape, it might actually just be a number 2 in its shading, and it's next to perhaps a number 5 in its shading. So go back over here to the eye, and I started this in class. I would first go through and make it the lightest value. Why don't we go to this eye? I'll start over here on this eye. Let's move things around. Okay, making sure I'm on the lighting. Let's see if that's better. So I have white shapes in here, white shapes kind of in here. So what I will do is just go really, really light at first. And these are going to be my white shapes. The dark shapes will get taken up in they'll take over the space in a minute. I'll go through and start looking at super dark shapes. Let's go, well, next, sorry, I can't talk and draw at the same time. I think you've noticed that. I have a hard time with it. Okay, I'm gonna go with super dark. There's a little bit of a white dot there, so I'm gonna go around that white dot. I'm looking at the very, very black corner right here. This is called stippling. You can also call it pointillism. Stippling usually involves a pen or a pencil. Pointillism can involve painting, pencil, pen. It's a more broad term. Anyway, I'm going to stipple here. And then it's very dark in here, so I'm going to continue making it very dark. You can always make things darker. You cannot make them lighter. So I can go back over this if I think, oh my goodness, I really want to make this really, really black. I can go in and make it super black. Now, if it's completely pitch black, I can go ahead and even make like little directional lines. Just to black it out. So I would go light, and then you're going to work with your medium. So in this eye, around the pupil, I see I have a really dark edge to that the iris pupil. I guess it's a pupil. So I'm going to black that out a little bit. I'm going to make dots around it. I've just made that ring kind of in there. And I'll go ahead and make, it almost looks like a mini United States. It's really dinky, but it's kind of like Texas down at the bottom in Florida. Just cut off Canada right there. And down in here it almost looks like kind of a bird. It's a medium shape. Got the two wings on the side and the body in the middle. So you just keep building, keep looking for a shape, kind of assign it a value as to how dark you think it is, and make sure you pay attention to not adding too many dots, because the more you overwork it, the darker and darker and darker things become, and then you lose all definition. Okay, so that's the plan. Now once you get this completely inked out, we're gonna let it, I'm gonna ask you to let it dry for about 12 hours. And I mean, as tempted as you are, let it dry for 12 hours and then go ahead in with your white vinyl eraser and erase out all that pencil work. And it should be good. If you're doing fur or anything that's not smooth like stippling is, let's go in here a second. It's the same thing. You would just go and make it sparse to begin with. In the direction, think about directional lines. Don't just scribble it any old way. Look at how the direction of the hair or the fur is moving. You can see how it's even going sideways over here. So really pay attention to that. It's going to make it look way more realistic if you're following the hairlines or the directional lines. And so where it's furry, I would just, like I started here, go sparse, looking at direction. And maybe even look at, how long do I think that fur is? You can always add more, so fill it in that way, and then work around it and say, okay, I've got a medium shape. Even though actually I think I would prefer stippling this. I'm going to move up because this is more furry than, or let's go in here. Okay. So I would start in here and look for value shapes in here. So I'm just going to throw it in. It's kind of a 2 anyway. It's not very white. It's light, but it's not very white. And then make it darker. And then again, I would do the stippling. I just think it looks smoother with the skin, but you just throw it in. And where you think it's really, really dark, you would, like, I'll go ahead and throw in that crevice. the skin creases in that. So it has kind of these funky directional lines when you look at it up close. I'll throw that in and just kind of layer. And you make it darker, darker, darker. Or move on. So I think that's about the right darkness. So when I go to do the next layer, it's going to even be a little darker. It would be, because there's more hair there. And you can kind of, fur will kind of cross, so some hairs do go one way and some go the other, and that's something to notice, because that will make it more realistic if you go ahead and let that little bit of crisscrossing. It's slight, but it is in there. Now when all is said and done, and you've run through and you've done all the texture, but there's your fur. Okay, I'm gonna put that down. Let me grab, I didn't plan on doing this, but it's within reach, so I should grab it. No, I'm trying to grab a white pen, and it's on the side of my desk. Nope, I don't have it right here, do I? Okay, I'll look for it. I'll bring it in class, but I do have a white precise rolling ball pen. So sometimes you might have like a really white whisker that goes on top of all this black, and it's really hard to go ahead and save that area. So I'll bring my white roller ball pen, and you can, after you've done all the blackness, we can throw in that white whisker or something. So I have a pen that will do that. And again, let this completed drawing completely dry for about 12 hours, and then you go on in with a clean, although I'm not so clean, but you'll go on in and you will erase any pencil lines that you think are, especially if it's just showing. If it's not showing, let's just leave it. But if you don't let this pen, this ink, I don't know why, but it can take like forever to dry. And if you don't go in and erase it, if you erase it too soon, it will smear, and you'll think, oh, it's been an hour, it's fine, and you'll do it and it smears. So I just tell everybody, please wait overnight, or just wait around 12 hours, and that way you know for sure that it's dry and we have no problems. But let it dry like on a table, or put it on top of a bookshelf or something, so it definitely has some air. And then we'll erase, and ta-da, you'll be done. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.